Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah. Recent research between men and women indicates that women are able to recognize 25 more colors and shapes. Did you know that? Well, that's an interesting fact about the differences between men and women. However, this year, the International Women's Day campaign theme is to embrace equity fully. According to the International Women's Day website, equity isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. Understanding the difference between equity and equality is absolutely essential. The campaign seeks to involve both women and men alike, for it is only through the inclusion and involvement of both we can make strides towards true gender equity. Interestingly, gender inequity is not just present in Africa and Asia, which typically espouse or maintain patriarchal societies. It's very present in Europe, the Americas, and Australia. It's the same plague, just different outfits. It's just dressed differently. So why am I spending time to talk about International Women's Day? Well, inspired by the words of my Lord, the most merciful, the all-knowing, even our Prophet, may peace and blessings be upon him, was asked about the crescent moon. Allah instructed him to respond that the crescent moon is used to indicate the periods for mankind. So it's a period in a few days that we have that will lead to the International Women's Day celebration. And it's a time for us to reflect through the Muslim lens on the objectives of the International Women's Day and how without needing only a single day. So Allah has given us the tools, opportunities to achieve the very objectives that have eluded mankind or womankind for generations. So what is International Women's Day? Why is it relevant? Is it even relevant? Does it give women courage to walk over men? Why as Muslims should we even care about liberation and empowerment of women? Is it something for the women? Where do our men feature in this? And where do our boys feature? So, back to the question, what is International Women's Day? It was first celebrated in 1911. It was designated in 1975 by the UN, which was announced to be International Women's Year. Since then, it's an annual celebration which is focal to bringing attention to issues such as gender equality, violence, and abuse against women. Then we might ask, is marking International Women's Day Islamic? Is it even Islamic? Should we as Muslim men and women even care about gender equality or gender equitability? Over the next few days, ending in International Women's Day itself, we will look at the different areas where Islam gets the worst press, even from the very same adherents to the faith. Does it even teach about gender equity? We'll find out. As always, knowledge is power, knowledge is empowering, and knowledge is liberating. In the words of our beloved, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever saves a life, it is as though he saved all of humanity, insha'Allah. So over the next 8 days, insha'Allah, we will look through the Muslim lens at Islamic dress, that's the hijab for women, marriage, work and business, that's for women, property ownership for women, family and children, divorce, domestic violence, and so on, women in society, leadership. Inshallah, we aim to look at all of these one day at a time. And we start with none other than Islamic dress. And what do you notice first about a Muslim woman? It's her dress, of course. It's only now that times have long changed. Otherwise, that is what is seen as the Muslim woman's preserve, the hijab, the head covering, used to be a mark of piety throughout the ages. Any images of Maryam, mother of Jesus, may peace be upon them both, the Virgin Mary, have her in hijab, the head covering. So it isn't just for Muslim women. It has been a mark for women of piety from time immemorial. Many people the world over opine that the Muslim woman dressed in hijab is oppressed. It is then clear that to such people, their definition of oppression is that this woman is forced to dress in a way that completely hides her beauty. In other words, freedom, according to this view, is having the ability to show as much of the body as one chooses. Or is it as much of the body as the prevailing fashion trends require? You choose. Of course, the Muslim woman, when asked if the hijab is a mark of oppression, you guessed it, her response is negative. So in this series, inshallah, we'll try and learn not to focus on the shortcomings of those who use every trick and stand available to them through the scriptures to oppress women. We will learn to look at the guidance of the scriptures themselves. And with that knowledge, with that power, with that empowerment, we'll be able to take a better stand, a stronger stand as women in society, supported very much by the men in society as well, if they too understand the guidance that we have. So the hijab is not a fashion or style dictate of men in the general sense. So it's not that men dictate it for women. It's a dictate from God, the Creator, the wise, the all-knowing. Then, of course, a common statement that is made really aimed at introducing insecurity at the woman it's addressed to is, what kind of religion makes women dress up, cover up just because men can't control their desires? Of course, this would be seen as oppression to a person who asks a question like that. Before we get into that, for those who knew Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, have you paused for a moment to reflect on his response to why he wore the same black turtleneck and blue jeans and sneakers? Steve Jobs, Barack Obama, whilst he was president, and many other worldly successful people understood, and they continue to understand, that having to make one less decision frees them up for more important success-building decisions. In short, limiting dress options is in fact liberating. Limiting dress options is in fact freeing up the mind to make those tough and more important decisions. So back to the question. What kind of religion makes women dress up, cover up just because men can't control their desires? As Muslims and as Muslim women, firstly, we have to be confident in the beautiful attributes of our Lord. He is the all-knowing, the most wise, and He has a purpose for this life. Our existence here is evidence that God's will is to have human life on earth. We also know from the Quran that Allah created us to worship Him. We know too that Allah made this world a world of means. Events don't just happen unexpectedly, haphazardly. A world of means gives us stability, comfort, and peace because you know exactly what you need to do to achieve particular ends. We have means. Imagine each time you lit the fire or turned on the cooker to cook, and you had no idea if it would be hot or cold. How would we even have any sort of food security if we couldn't be guaranteed that the fire would burn or the cooker would be hot to cook our food? In the same vein, Allah sets means for how the human race would be perpetuated. It is through the male-female relationship. He went far beyond making the intimacy the only arrangement. He gave men stronger desires than women. And He made women's bodies physically more attractive and alluring than the men's. On the other hand, for the woman, Allah gave her stronger nurturing abilities. So with strong desires on the one hand and strong nurturing on the other, there is a balance in marriage to support the human race to perpetuity or until Allah decides it's the end, it's the last day. So a religion that dictates for women to cover up is in fact one that sees to it that both men and women do not get distracted from their ultimate journey to success, everlasting success. In effect, it's one less decision. Slavery to fashion and trends is not compatible with freedom of the woman. It's not compatible to gender equity. As Muslims, as Muslim women, what are we doing to embrace the liberation that comes from the choice of dress that was set by our Lord as a moderate mark of worship to the one who controls everything? What are we doing to help our young girls to embrace a life and dress that does not enslave them? So with that, I leave those questions for you. What are we doing to help our young girls to embrace a life and dress that does not enslave them, that frees them up from that one decision, frees them up to pursue the more important decisions? Slavery to fashion and trends is not compatible with freedom of the woman. Neither is it compatible to gender equity. And we're talking about that even slavery to hijab fashion and trends, hijab trends, we see that. That too is not compatible with freedom of the woman because it's still an enslavement to fashion. So as Muslims, as Muslim women, what are we doing to truly embrace the liberation that comes from the choice of dress that was set by our Lord as a moderate mark of worship of the one who controls everything and is free of need? What are we doing to help our young girls to embrace a life and dress that does not enslave them? I leave those reflections with you. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll take a couple of reflections on marriage, particularly on polygamy, because that gets bad press for Islam and Muslims. Inshallah. So let us praise the fashioner, the granter of peace and security, the honorer, who chose for us a beautiful, honorable fashion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.